A very good evening and welcome this edition of the Fourth Estate. Charles Mwangu Shampagi. It's been an event-packed week, but most importantly, looking on the political spectrum, what has been going on, especially over the last 1 year. We've made 1 year since the fracas in Arua. The killing of Abiriga was in June, I think June 8th, and then the by-election that followed after his murder, and the chaos it unleashed, which also in a way actually announced the birth of people power to Ugandans. Some people will claim that people power was born during the 2017, between September and December 2017, during the constitutional amendment process, the famous or infamous Raphael Majezi bill. But we'll be discussing that. What does it look like at the moment, and broader political issues. A proposed amendment to the savings that we make to the National Social Security Fund, the NSSF Amendment Bill 2019. National Social Security Fund Amendment Bill 2019 has sparked off a storm of debate over those savings. Now, the NSSF argues and says, actually, they only keep 5% of your money, of all your earnings, and you keep 95%. No one wants to talk about what they do with the 95%, but there's a lot of debate about that 5% and how it should be dealt with. Now, the controversy is about the tax component to, one of the issues is the tax component. When can you access the money? How much can you access? And whether that money, when you access it, will be taxed or not taxed. We'll be discussing that. I have a copy of the bill with me here. So we'll be discussing a little bit of it. To discuss those and other issues with me tonight, I have, from the extreme end, I have Kenneth Anderson Lukwago, works with Radio 1, and is a political commentator. Very nice to have you.
Thank you for inviting me, Charles.
We have Dictor Asimwe, works with the East African newspaper. Dictor, very nice to have you.
Thank you for inviting me.
I don't know where they extracted you, because I know you must be on leave. You should be enjoying yourself. And but thank you for making the time and to come to discuss this with us.
Thank you.
We have also with us Agatha Ateire. She's a writer and an independent journalist. The last I checked.
Yes. An independent. You are the one who is accurate. Others call me the independent writer, but I am an independent
journalist.
And she's very smart in red and has a red notebook. she's really smart now.
Don't drag me into your people power things.
I'm not saying you're smart.
And we have Joel Senyonyi making a return to the show. Joel Senyonyi is spokesperson for People Power, and a former journalist and a former producer of this show, actually, and a lawyer in the making. Very nice to have you.
Thank you, Charles. I'm delighted to be here.
Always a pleasure to have you with us
Is
on the show here.
it not true that once a journalist, always a journalist?
I'm not sure about that.
Well, the instincts remain there.
Dictor is protesting.
So wherever I am, I have my notebook and pen.
I'm also protesting.
The journalist in me can come out.
I think Joel, because he's only in transition, you go and look for those old journalists in Parliament. They are a bigger headache to journalism and journalists than anyone else can imagine.
You see, when there's food in your mouth, you can't talk anymore. So.
Exactly. So yeah, Joel might graduate to getting food in his mouth, and then he will not be a journalist. Gentlemen and ladies, very nice to have you. Let's start with the broader political question in this country. You see, where we are, we're counting down to the actual kickoff of the campaign season. People Power announced coordinators. Some people believe, I partly agree with them, that you started on a journey of formalization of your movement, which you had promised you not become, and once you have done formalization, that also begins to create the rifts and the schisms that have affected political parties. Yoweri Museveni has been out on a roll. He's doing wealth creation tours, and many people believe this is the tradition he has always had. 2 years before an election, he starts to move across the country to launch and introduce himself and prepare for the next election. This one has been even more poignant than what we have seen before, because he has been picking up endorsements in whichever corner of the country he has been. So he's in campaign mode. The other day, Mugisha Muntu announced nationwide tours to promote and plant ANT, the Alliance for National Transformation. I haven't had much from the Forum for Democratic Change, but I know that DP has been very active and trying to get itself in order. I don't know how much the Uganda People's Congress is doing, or others who will emerge. And no one has talked about former presidential candidate and the one who petitioned against the last election, John Patrick Amama Mbabazi, and what his plans might be. Let me start with Joel because he's the most active political actor among the team we have here. You guys have rolled out 1 year since Arua. You have rolled out and you have announced national coordinators. You're marking the anniversary, but you also have one of the early candidates to declare in your president. Is he your president? Is he your coordinator? Is he your leader? What do you call him?
He's the leader of the movement. Look, there's something inaccurate you said, that the birthing of People Power was the Arua by-election. That's not true.
No, he said announcing.
I said there is no
I was very attentive when you were giving your preamble.
I said some people say it was birthed with the constitutional amendment of December 2017. Did you hear that?
Yeah, and then
Yes.
you also said,
and then I also said
Arua.
the Arua by-election.
Yeah, but like I'm saying, it's
what was
inaccurate
inaccurate?
because we participated in elections before that. We were in Bujiri, we were in Rukunjiri with Betty Muzanira, we were in Jinja East with the Honorable Paul Mwiru. But away from that, I talk about coordinators. Look, we did say at the very start that we're not a political party, and we did not think, and we still think that's not the direction that we should take. There's a plethora of political parties in this country. Our strong conviction is that Uganda's problem is not the need for another political party. We salute political parties that are in place. We work with them.
Joel, you sound exactly like Yoweri Museveni sounded in 1980. Exactly like Museveni sounded.
Yeah, our challenge is that he went off the correct line. Have you read that book?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so there
By
you are.
Dr. Olive Kobsinje.
Yeah,
I've
sure.
read it.
So he went off the correct path. But so that's the point, that we have political parties in place, but is that the biggest need, that we form another political party? We didn't think so. But be that as it may, we work with political parties, political party players.
I'm wondering where you're picking your lessons from, but because, like I've said, President Yoweri Museveni, even when he took power in 1986, to the time we worked on the Constitution, to its promulgation in 1995, to 2001, when he ran for what should have been his final second term, elective term in office, until shortly towards 2005. That's when he agreed that the NRM was actually a political party. They even did not register it as a political party. They registered it as a political organization.
It's a political organization.
Because they refused, they used exactly the same words to say, we are not like these other political parties, we are not political parties.
But actually, when you
Just
read
a moment.
the Political
Just a
Parties
moment.
and Organizations
Just a
Act, there's
moment.
not so much of a difference
Yes.
between a party and
And an organization. The Forum for Democratic Change started as a reform agenda and then ended up as FDC. The Alliance for National Transformation started as New Formation and ended up as Alliance for National Transformation. So when you tell us for you are different, I am wondering exactly what you mean that you are different.
Charles, I've said that at the very start we did not think, and up to now we still do not think. It's a decision that we keep evaluating. You know, maybe a time will come when we think otherwise. But then we didn't think we needed to form a political party. As of right now, we don't think we need to form a political party. We believe we can work together with all political entities. Because look, the major challenge that our country has, we have struggled with transition. We want to fix this country. And that's possible without necessarily forming another political party. We believe we can be a jail of sorts. And that's why when you talk about the coordinators that we have from the NRM, from the FDC, from DP, from ANT, people that are interested in a Uganda that works for all Ugandans.
Agatha, let me come to you.
And so that's what we are trying to form, as opposed to another political party.
In spite of Joel's protestations at the beginning, yes, NRM, People Power supported Robert Kyagulanyi to enter parliament. He's now the leader of People Power. It supported Paul Mwiru, supported Asman Basalirwa, and supported Betty Muzanira, as you say. But the national launch of People Power, the arrival at the national stage, was Kassiano Wadri's election in Arua. Now, I want to ask you a different question. People Power is evolving. Joel says they have people from the movement, they have people from FDC, from DP, from UPC, from elsewhere. Can those people survive where they have been put into a formal organization, a formal structure, as an unnamed to officers called national coordinators, can they still belong to the other entities they belong to, provided they just believe? Does our politics work like that?
Well, I asked him that question when after the coordination happened, and I think it is problematic that you have people who have come from FDC, NRM, and who have not denounced their respective parties, and they have come as coordinators of people power. Because my question that I put to Joel, he never answered it, was what will happen during the elections? Will these people support a people power candidate against a candidate of their respective parties? Because let's say Kassiano Wadri, Winnichiza, Tinkasime are still coordinators of people power, and Bobi Wine stands for presidency like he already has declared, and Muntu and Museveni and Besigye or Amriat are also standing. So will these people support the leaders of their parties, or will they support Bobi Wine for whom they are coordinating? So that's where the difference is. When you ask them that, because I've asked the people that were named on that group, and they said we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I think it's going to create chaos. But for now, what I agree with Joel about is the need for it to be a party. We have parties that are not functioning because of one reason or another, because you have a government that is stifling them with that act of 2013, POMA. You have the Political Organizations Act. You have, you have NRM, which is like a state that is using all the resources of the state to stifle them. You have infiltration of the structures. So I do not think that really an emerging actor necessarily needs a party. I thought initially a movement to get everyone on board, to get even the youth that are never interested in becoming members of parties would, if their urgent need, if the urgent...
Though to be fair to government also, or the incumbent regime also, there are many political parties. I followed the formation, the creation, the opening up of the political space as a journalist. And there are many political parties that actually got registered, that have failed to get off the ground on their own. I don't know how many people on this table and among our viewers remember a political party like
Action Party?
Yeah, Action Party. Action Party, the founder was sent
Nelson Ochegere.
Nelson Ochegere was made
Ambassador.
an ambassador. But you have Stella Nambuya, a Republican Women and Youth Party. I don't know how many people remember.
The Peasants Party?
The Peasants Party. I was seeing the president of the Peasants Party on one of the streets of Kampala the other day, and I'm wondering what was happening.
So how are you saying that is being unfair to a government?
No, I'm saying...
They don't have resources. In other countries, the government provides funds for other political parties.
No, they've started to do that here for only those in parliament. But you see, Charles, therein is the issue that a political party, and then what? Because like you're saying, there's a plethora of them, but they're not out there. And you don't necessarily have to be a political party to be organized. I don't know why, because that's a misnomer. That you can still be organized and function in an orderly way without necessarily being a political party, and that's what we are doing.
I think the crisis that, or the gray area that people power is creating is that you're beginning to create formal structures without agreeing that you're formalizing.
It's just semantics. Formalizing, organizing, getting better, I don't know.
It sort of makes sense that people power has gone that way, because that's the cycle of Ugandans. That even when they vote Kassiano Wadri, they are probably voting Kassiano Wadri because they know him, versus, let's say, Nusrat Peru, who for as long as she was at Yala, she was standing in Arua and losing those elections. So we know she's not really popular. So yeah, it might be people power, but it might also be the power of the candidates in that race. And the same goes for whether you go to Jinja or even with the former Jema president, or is he still Jema president?
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah, the point is that the national psyche in Uganda has remained with the
individual merit
thing, and it has not gone away. That's why when Kantiti loses in, even those who are in political parties, Kantiti loses in Chadondo, and he has to bear the costs and go to jail for having participated in that race.
Yet
because
he had a party
yet he had a
backing him.
political party. And that's the thing, that even where there are political parties, those political parties are not organizing the way political parties should be organizing. When it's time for bearing the cost of an election, the individual male bears the cost of an election, bears they basically pay for most of their races. So it sort of makes sense. It's in line with what we have in Uganda, that people power has gone in the way it is. As for whether
you have this issue, Dictor. You have the opposition weak, even when put together, struggling every election to work together, new formations emerging every other election, sharing a small, sharing the spoils of the voters that come to them, or they're able to mobilize. Now, when you create another formalized structure, you're not dissolving the people power coordinators back into the parties that they initially belonged to. You're actually creating another contender for power that is independent of the other political parties by siphoning people from the other entities.
But like I said, it's because of the national side. Everyone gets a little power, or Anamama Mbabas, for example, leaves the NRM, or even the Mshegas at first, and they cannot commit to one political organization, because as individuals they have merit to lead the country, so they go out to lead the country. Bobby Wine comes and his people power, and they almost do the same thing, because as a nation we have failed to move past that cycle of individual merit. And yes, that causes problems when it's time for elections, because people are fighting for the same positions. It's very hard to choose who the opposition will support or who not to support. Those are problems that need to be resolved, but can people power resolve them on their own? I don't know. I don't think so.
Anderson, when do you make of this? Because the Democratic Party is struggling. I had an interview with the other day. I was speaking to the party president of the President General, the Democratic Party, Norbert Mao, and he was saying, you see, they are looking out and saying, yeah, FDC, for example, thinks it's big and doesn't want the small players who are the DP. People power has emerged, and it thinks it's growing faster and is better than those that have existed before, and it's taking away people from them. Yet there is a thinking that maybe you need to put these together and to form a bit of a coalition. You take this back to the Moshi conference, where they are picking everybody, including individuals who thought they were major players on the national stage, to try and bring and present themselves. Do you think that helps the politics of especially the opposition in this country?
Well, my understanding of how people power wants to operate, I think the leaders of the people power, and Joel, correct me here if I'm wrong, so that they will try maybe to become a glue to provide a vehicle that has been agreed on in boardrooms, but then in actual sense it is never actualized. Because in my interaction with most of these opposition party leaders, they all agree that no single party can on its own manage to dislodge the NRM from power. And from time to time they have said that they will need to come together. And what has been lacking is a vehicle that would provide that momentum. So the reason I think Joel keeps on saying they do not look at themselves as a political party, they still have hope that they can become that vehicle that can bring everyone together. Much as officially some of these political party leaders may speak a few bad things here and there about the people power formation or group, behind the curtains, I know, I'm privy to some information that there are actually talks that keep on going on. I know that there have been talks between people power movement and the FDC, and I think the agenda is to find a way they can work together. The same idea with the Democratic Party. They have tried to see how they can work together. If you talk about JEMA, I think JEMA is already on board, because Basaliwa is one of the coordinators, and I think the political party as JEMA took a decision that they will ally with the people power movement, because they all agree that a political party alone cannot provide a solution, as they think, to dislodge the NRM. The problem is that the interest that each leader from the different political parties have in they themselves wishing to become the leader of that particular political vehicle. That seems to be the problem that is actually blocking progress in terms of having that vehicle that unites them. Because they all agree that even at the beginning when people power was at the peak, you saw every political party trying to own it. DP will tell you we are the original founders of people power. NRM also tried to tell you that we are the ones who brought people power here. We went in the bush and fought to bring people power here. FDC will tell you that thing of people power is actually ours. We are the ones who began with the word people's government. So there is that semblance of actually accepting that people power can be that glue that brings the opposition together to move. But I think the problem is they need to actually agree as different political actors that this is what we need to do to be able to move. Because it is one thing to say that if we are not united, we will not deliver. But then at the end of the day, you are not working towards that.
Gentlemen
and
and ladies,
for me, that's where I see the problem.
Let's go back 1 year ago and the months before then. When Bobby Wine arrives, before Bobby Wine arrives, when members of parliament opposed to the amendment proposed by Majezi to change, to remove Article 105(2).
104.
102.
104.
Eh?
It was 105.
1052.
1052.
Yes. And they decide that our color that represents this resistance to the amendment of the Constitution is the color red. Muslims within that group already have their Islamic capes. They bring a few which they share with their colleagues. And then the red beret is born. There you have some evolving movement that is bringing everybody together.
Exactly.
So when Bobby Wine arrives in Rukunjiri to support Muzanera, that is the spirit in which he arrives.
Exactly.
When he heads to
Bujiri,
that is the spirit. But between Arua municipality, Kasiano Wadri, to today, you have a section owning what was actually people power and creating an organization out of it. and Joe, please pardon me. You've presented, you called it a movement. The movement first arrived here with a bus. It was empty at the beginning, and then they put in people. But you have already provided a driver for the bus because Robert Chagulanyi has announced that he will seek election as a candidate. Do you still provide glue when you have determined that, when you have already more or less ring-fenced positions?
So a couple of things. One, you did say that people power is siphoning people from left, right, and center. Charles, we're not going to manufacture Ugandans. We are not going to import people from Congo, from Madagascar. It's Ugandans we are dealing with.
Yes. Which
Ugandans are, in many cases, already political players. They have been active. But we are saying what we are providing is a platform. All right? And for those that will say, you did mention that, people power thinking it's better than the others, and so the friction. Look, we are saying we actually are not better than anybody. We need everybody on board. Everybody that is interested in seeing a smooth transition of power. We have not seen that in this country. Everybody, just hold on.
Need everybody.
Hold on. And so we are saying we are providing a platform that brings together all these entities that wants to see a smooth transition, that want to see a better country. When we were little children, we used to play with magnifying glasses. Now, so there's rays all over the place, but you need the rays to be focused. So get the glass, put it above a piece of paper, and it would burn it. And what we are saying, we're not even necessarily manufacturing the energies. The energies are there for Ugandans who are interested in change, who want a better country. And what we are saying is, like this magnifying glass, just provide a focus such that then it can be effective. And that's what we are doing. So you have a platform that is saying, look, we are open to everybody that is interested in seeing this country get better.
What's that focus?
And that's what we are calling people power. So a platform, whether you belong to the NRM, you want to see betterness, please come on board. FDC, DP, ANT,
so what
whatever
saying,
the case might be.
The image you use of the magnifying glass is a beautiful one. You're concentrating all these rays, but the focus you're putting them on is yourselves.
Ourselves meaning Ugandans. I don't know which one you're talking about.
Does it appear to you like that?
Also, do we have Congolese that are a part of this?
Is it? No. We know that political parties do exist separately. And we have seen that if you're using the last 1 year as the yardstick for measuring the progression, the transition of people power, that you're moving towards that stage where now people are either going to belong or not belong. And you are trying to present to these boardroom negotiations that you've been talking about, actually not happening in boardroom. I know some meetings that have been happening for the last so many months in a compound of one of the major institutions. Political organization and mobilization in this country is very difficult. A point that I think Agatha was talking about at the beginning, that some people will find whatever convenient spaces they can where they'll be least disrupted. So if you go in the evening to Makerere University, in around guest house, not in the guest house, but in the compound, you'd find a lot of meetings happening before these coordinators were announced. And what does it mean for people power and its relationship with the other players on the idea that it wanted to create that glue? I need to hear from the ladies. The one in red who is wearing people power colors, and the one in blue is who is putting on FDC colors.
What I have not got from Charles, it's as if Charles is disputing the leader or the person that introduced people power, or who does people power, who is composed?
I think Charles's point is here, that while people power is trying to bring the different political actors under the same vehicle, it is instead antagonizing the other political parties. I think.
But how is that happening?
That's what I think is trying to arrive. It's actually saying
how exactly is it antagonizing?
That's exactly what it appears.
That's what
which party? Give us examples of a party that has said these guys are antagonizing us.
I want to say that
you don't have any.
That's something that at some point people power had done. That's true, because if you
antagonizing,
yes, if you went on Twitter, they were or let's even not forget there is a time when Besigye was beaten by what they said were people power supporters.
But what they said is the right word. We don't know.
No. Okay, anyway, so, but, okay, let's say what they said, but even on Twitter, you could clearly see people power supporters, even up to now. For example, I think today or yesterday, Bobby Wine sent out a tweet congratulating Besigye on getting an award. And if you go in his replies, you have very many people telling Bobby Wine that you should tell Kizza Besigye to stand down so that you can have. That's the spirit.
But Bobby Wine has no power to control that.
You don't have to go to Twitter.
The point I'm making.
You don't have to go to Twitter to see that. Actually, when the coordinators were announced, some political parties came out vividly and said we are going to summon those people so that they can return our cards or explain.
But some people apologize. You had Norbert Mao, later on saying
but the
my Secretary General he went out of board, he was out of his way.
That's already a contradiction.
So for me, the issue here is that I agree that Bobby Wine since and has tried to be more reconciliatory with other parties. But the spirit, and I would say, because if you remember the meeting at Africana where there were veiled attacks on FDC, that's a problem that, there was a meeting at Africana where there was Mao and Bwanika and the others.
Launch of the DP group.
Those attacks have been there. But the thing you forget that within the opposition, there has always been a fight by some political actors to become leaders of opposition in parliament so that they can get that little money that comes with it. So sometimes that leads to that that friction. But the other thing is that even this so-called organizing is, in my view, focusing on the wrong things. I am yet to see an instance where parties, for example, come together, put up a fund so that they have the fund to fund their MPs or even councillors during the general election. That maybe if parties were bringing together resources, mobilizing resources, so that they can then say, we have this fund of this amount of money, we shall give a percentage of every, that brought together thing, we shall give a percentage to every candidate. That's organizing, because we know that in Uganda, elections are won by money. That's not happening. What's happening is that people are fighting really so that, and DP has tried that before, so that they can take over as the leader of opposition and get some little money from that. And that's the problem. And that's the thing that I don't see happening. Everyone is sort of saying they are mobilizing, but they're not really, because they are not doing anything, in my view.
Let me clarify where I'm coming from. I've been a journalist for many years and a keen observer of the political, how politics has evolved in this country, at least over the last 15 or so years. I saw FDC getting born. and the NRM getting registered as a political party, transition to become a political party, and the Democratic Party, the Uganda People's Congress, try to revive themselves, and the emergence of the new players. So JPAM emerges, there's the TDA process, and we end up with him as a candidate. My concern is, Joel, let me clarify. And this is nothing, I hold nothing against,
of course,
either Bobby
Wine. Even if you did.
Yes, even if I did.
So what?
No, I hold nothing against.
You're entitled to your opinion.
Yes,
so
I hold nothing against Bobby
don't
Wine
worry,
or,
even if you do.
People Power.
No, I'm comforting you and saying there's no problem.
No, you don't have to comfort me. I'm not uncomfortable with my position.
You seem to be, that's why you're explaining. But anyhow.
What I'm saying is, the more you formalize, you lose the fluidity that you set out to promote. And you've seen it the last time we were hosting you on the show here, at least when I was here. You read back the comments. A certain section owns you.
Which one?
Which is People Power. And it tries to distinguish itself from the other actors within the political position. And my question is, if that is the way People Power evolves, if we came back to do this show in August 2020, what kind of formations would we have, and how would those have impacted the opposition and the opposition's challenge to the long incumbency of the NRM and President Museveni?
Charles, you're a lawyer in training. You know that there's such a thing as form and substance. Now, for a very long time, there was quite a bit of form, the excitement and the aura and the desire for change and so on. But you want to graduate from that and say, all right, let's see how we get this form and substantiate it, if you like. For a very long time, Ugandans kept saying, all right, so you guys, yeah, you have brought this win with you.
Which is formalization.
But can you get organized?
Getting a new identity.
Give it a name. Point is that a time comes and you have got to get organized. That, for example, Bobby Wine will go to Kabong or wherever, and there's all this excitement and so on, but then he has left what's on ground, who is the contact person there, and there's nothing. And so we said, we need to address this. The aura, the excitement is there, but then get organized. All right, how do you do that? Get contact persons.
I hear you.
Such that at the end of the day, you know who to refer to. If the people of, I don't know, Busia, for example, who do they run to? Everyone has been running to Honorable Robert Chagulanyi, and then myself when I was named spokesperson. But that now you want to have those structures in place. So the people of Busia, they can coalesce around the coordinators in that area and all of that. And you're saying that it's possible other political entities feel left out, and that's why we're saying this platform is open for everybody. And if you can see among our coordinators,
that's exactly what I was saying.
It is cross-cutting.
Yes, that's exactly where I find the problem for me. That instead of coalescing around Kassiano Wadri, remaining a member of the FDC, he becomes a contact person for People Power.
But we have not told them to leave their political parties, have we? They have political parties where they belong, but we're saying this platform is open to every political party, every political actor, every political entity. Why? Because
was it Dr. Agatha who asked, when it comes to
a candidate,
who
would they be vouching for?
How would they sort themselves out around the different loyalties that you are telling them that they can belong to at the moment?
Well, again, that's a continuous discussion. He has told you we are continuously engaging with all the different ones.
That's a very political answer.
But that's the truth. Because we are engaging with them. Last week we met with General Mugisha Muntu and his team. We have met with him before severally. We have met with Dr. Kebi and his team. We have met with Norbert Mao and his team, and we continuously engage.
When you're meeting, what do you talk about? How come by the time you named your coordinators, they were not aware?
That's actually not true. We did, in our continuous engagements with these people, we told them, look, we want to get organized. And so there's people that we are reaching out to. And these people, by the way, are not children. I had people say, you stole this one from the other side. They said, but wait, is that person a goat that you tie a rope around their neck and you drag them?
I'm happy you admit now it's not me saying that.
That one? Saying that one?
Siphoning. You tried to tie siphoning to me.
Yeah, that's what you and others seem to see it as. But you see, these are not children. They know what they're doing.
Gentlemen.
And the political players that were saying we had no idea about this.
Gentlemen and ladies, we need to take a quick commercial break. When we come out of the break, I need us to reflect a little bit to help our viewers to understand what collapsed earlier efforts of a united opposition and vehicles that appeared to be driving towards uniting and creating creating glue on which others could hold on. TDA is a very good example because it's one of the most recent.
IPC.
IPC, there was IPFC. Yes, IPC, IPFC. There have been many that have come up like that. What collapsed them? After a very short commercial break. You're still watching the Fourth Estate, and we're discussing the political temperature within the country as we move closer and closer towards the 2021 general elections. 2020 will be in full election mode, though we actually are already in campaign mode at the moment, because you have the Electoral Commission roadmap taking better shape. You have political parties beginning to do their primaries, and I'm wondering how some of these coordinators will fit in when the party primaries are called. Kenneth, let's go back a little. Just before I cross to the discussion on the NSSF and the amendment, the attempts at creating a united front by the opposition, in most cases, have ended up creating a new organization. If Amama Mbabazi had wished in 2016 to keep his political candle burning and to continue challenging President Yoweri Museveni as a candidate, he would most likely have turned TDA into another political party, because that's the experience we have had from previously. Others have faltered along the way. Now, if you're saying that People Power is positioning itself as the glue or the magnet onto which other people with the same thinking, who want Museveni out of power, who want things, power returned to the people, as you have called it, to hold on to, are the methods and the approaches they're taking the ones that are likely to deliver them to that?
Well, Charles, perhaps before I respond to that very question, I want to go a little bit back and have a say on the conversation we had before we went for that break. And it's about whether what People Power is doing is right, getting people from these other political parties. I think politically that is very healthy. This has happened. In fact, political parties die. Political parties die, and sometimes they even do mergers, and a new vehicle is born. If you want a very good example, you can cross over to our neighbors in Kenya. Each other election, we have a different vehicle that keeps on coming up. Even at the moment, there are alliances being formed. If you saw a story that is running on the Daily Nation, as of today, there's already a projection that Raila Odinga is going to face off with the current deputy president, and already formations are taking shape. So I think it's healthy, even if when you look at the big number of leaders, for instance, in FDC, they belong to other political parties. For instance, you talk about Kassiano Wadri, you talk about Latigo, you talk about a number of them. They actually belong to the Democratic Party. But when the FDC was born, they crossed over to the other side. Some actually came out of the NRM. So I think it is healthy for political organizations to evolve and provide a platform. Now, back to your question about what keeps on perhaps causing the opposition to falter, especially at the tail end. I think it all goes back to the individualism that the political leaders approach the negotiations that they go in with. You find some people come with that extreme position. It's either me or nobody else. And if you listen carefully to the stories that came out during the Democratic Alliance attempts to come up with a single presidential candidate, you will be baffled, because they were all in there. They drew a checklist, what would be followed to arrive to that single presidential candidate. But they will tell you that as the checklist was ticking in another direction, some people felt uncomfortable and they chose to get out of the process.
Like who?
They will tell you that, for instance, the FDC people, we saw them, the youth from the FDC, jumping out and saying, we do not allow our leader to be in this process, we want them to get out. We saw they went up to Bugolobi, where there was a meeting in a hotel, they pulled him out. They went to TDA, there were demonstrations, we saw what happened. So they pulled out Dr. Besigye, and from that time, Dr. Besigye announced that he was going to run as an FDC party candidate.
Which is something I would support if
So-
Bobby Wine did, if they're making attempts, and he reads, because I think to some extent, Kizza Besigye, in my view, was vindicated by his position.
Yeah.
Because
How?
when Amama Mbabas arrived, let me explain. When Amama Mbabas arrived, I do not think, even in the discussions on TDA, he was ready to take any other position. But then shortly after, arrives
He had
former
not
vice
become,
president.
come to
Can
become
I
LC1
can I
chairman.
remind
Yes,
you-
he had not come to become LC1 chairman.
Can I
he, had
remi-
he had come to become presidential candidate.
Can
Just
I-
like
can
all
I
the
remind
others.
you?
Yes.
Can I remind you?
Gilbert
Just a
Bukenya,
moment.
Let me remind you
Then Gilbert
something.
Bukenya arrives. He waltzes around, goes to many different formations, tries to go to DP, doesn't gain much
But
traction
people call
in
him
DP.
Mr. Flip Flop.
Yes. Then he goes to Michael Mabike's group, Social Democratic Party or something.
That
like
one, SDP.
Was it SDP?
Yeah,
And they don't give him the space the ticket that he wanted. Then he arrives at TDA, and someone comes and says, "Wait a minute, you guys, we're actually taking us. So if you think you're more electable than the others who are running, are you going to subject that dream for the great opposition just simply because you want to ally?"
Well, the little I know about TDA, the information I gathered, and you'll agree with me, originally, Amama Mbabazi was with this strategy of going it alone. But there were a number of emissaries who were sent to him to actually try to pull him over to the TDA side. And I also remember a number of press conferences where these other opposition political leaders were actually urging him that now that he has left the NRM, he has known the tactics that the NRM has been using. He would be better off if he joined the opposition, who already have a sizable support, and then they add on to be able to do what? To dislodge the NRM. But like I told you, there was a checklist. I'm told there was a checklist. If you talk to some of the principals who were in the TDA meetings, there were a checklist, and they will tick. One of the issue was who had the capacity to bring on board new voters, because there was a belief that there are about 40% of Ugandans who are registered to vote, but they never turn up. And the logic was that they never believe in either of the candidates that have been running. So there was that notion that perhaps a new face would be able to pull over these 40%. And
does that answer for you my vindication? The vindication I was talking about. Does that answer that for you?
No, because
does it answer it for me?
On that particular point on the checklist?
But I'll also ask you a logic. If you look at the people who actually came out, Amama Mbabazi, Besigye, and the rest, if there was rigging, like the reports came out and the arguments they made, who do you think the NRM would rig most against?
I don't know.
Well, that also is something that we can discuss.
You can make the argument that Mama Mbabazi was rigged against, but in the aftermath of the election, I went for a tour of Western Uganda for some other coverage for the East African that's not. And the feeling I got is that people never supported him, and which kind of makes sense, because if the man could have to, when he was in the NRM, he had to rig his elections to become an MP. If he cannot get the people of his constituency to vote for him when he's MP, why are we sure that this guy will then be able to get voters when he becomes president? Some of these things, you can argue that maybe he was able to bring on new voters, but it's also possible that he wasn't able to because he had never done that.
Yes, Dictor, maybe coming to Agatha here. If we are non-political actors, we operate in the political space, but we're not partisan actors. So you're interacting with all these people, you're out in the field interviewing people, so you'd know the strength of a particular candidate, and then you can plus or minus the effect of rigging against a particular candidate. And you'll tell within those efforts, if Robert Kyagulanyi is on the ticket in 2021, and he has created this groundswell that is driving him towards there, a political analyst would definitely be able to tell whether he has won genuinely or has been rigged out of victory. Wouldn't you say? Agatha, let me take you back. IPFC 2006, IPC 2011, I think.
Yeah, 2011.
TDA 2016. In 2001, the opposition attempted to rally around reform agenda. In 1996, the opposition attempted, actually Uganda People's Congress, contributed financially to the candidature of Paul Kawanga Semogere.
Yes.
In 2001, I have been told, the Uganda People's Congress, it was a lot more organized than it is now, from Obote House, what is it called?
Obote Foundation?
Obote Foundation. Obote Foundation were able to realize some resources and contribute them to the other parties because they knew at that time they were not yet organized enough to be able to mount a meaningful run for themselves. But in 1996, Paul Kawanga Semogere for the Democratic Party. In 2001, the Democratic Party, a faction of it, created or sponsored a candidate to run in that election. Same as in 2006, 2011, 2016. Can the people power provide that glue, given that
conversation that has been happening between here, what Dictor and Kenneth said, paint for you the picture. And for me, the picture is what I've always said, that everyone has goodwill, yeah? You have, in 2016, for example, you have people who thought, people like Bishop Zach, those who were behind TDA, who thought that Besigye has run for the last 3 times.
4.
No, then it was 3. Yes. And we have not achieved what many Ugandans want, which is a change of government, a peaceful change of government. In the time that Besigye is running, like Kenneth said, you have more than 40% of the voters who are not turning out to vote. And to those voters, not Besigye, not Museveni are appealable. Like, forget the others, the workers who are in Pelekezi.
There would also be those who will say, look, this thing is rigged, so let me not
go
and vote for my candidate.
Yes.
When he was running for his third presidential race.
So first way, because in 2011, only 59% of the people voted. So that means you have 41% that hasn't voted. And the thinking of those guys behind TDA was, maybe one, Besigye doesn't appeal to these other guys. 2, you have also others saying Besigye has been winning, claiming to have won, but failing to take power. Maybe there's a person, and I've heard this many times, maybe there's a person that Museveni will be more willing to cede power to than to Besigye. So that's the bringing of a mama wasn't mainly because they believed in his abilities, but was because they were saying, maybe if we changed a candidate. Because I heard in TDA that if Muntu had won in Namboli, if he had won to be the flag bearer of FDC, they were very sure that would be the TDA candidate. And I don't think that was because they had anything against Besigye. It was because they are rationalizing things and thinking, you get. Yeah, but then you have Besigye, wait, Dictor, you have Besigye who thinks, no, I can do better, I have done better than who? Than Amama Mbabazi. He's not a people person. He's aloof. He, like Dictor was saying here, he would struggle to win an election under NRM. He would struggle to win Secretary General in NRM, and he would rig with the help of the president, who would say he's the only sober person. So even Besigye, in refusing, I do not agree with people who say it's because he's greedy or he thinks he's selfish, all those things. It's because he thinks, I can do better in this election than leaving it for someone who doesn't appeal to the people. Now, come to 2021. I think the chaos is going to be even worse than we've seen before. Because now you have 3 that we think are going to be contenders from the opposition. You have Bobby Wine, who think, I have only been in politics for barely 2 years. And I am popular both at national and international level. I can attract funding. I can attract the youth that haven't been voting, or the youth that have come of age between 2016 and now. So I am the best candidate. But then you'll have Besigye who comes close every election, who thinks I am the best candidate. You have Muntu, whose sole reason for leaving FDC was to attract the 40%. The 40% we're talking about. Because people think Besigye is so radical, we don't like his style of politics, and those people are not catered for by Bobby Wine, because Bobby Wine's style is almost the same as Besigye. So you also will have Muntu who doesn't want to let down his audience, and will also say, And that's where the problem will come from. And like going back to what I said, it's not ill will. There's no ill will. You have people thinking, because they have this need, this desperation of and they think I am the best person. And until they sit down and say, okay, even if I think I'm the best person as BSJ, let me see how Bob Wine will fare. Or let me see how Muntu will fare. We will still have those issues. And
but guys, what's with the obsession of having a single presidential candidate?
I have no idea.
Because
I do.
It's not an obsession.
Because look here. Wait. Look here. If we had Amama Babazi and Kiza Besigye in the race, if Amama Babazi had gotten 20% and Kiza Besigye had gotten 30, whatever, we would have gone for a rerun and then would be able to have a single candidate. So, but that's not happening. I think an alliance would be useful at the level of MPs and local leadership.
Let me explain to Victor what I think the importance is.
That's where
that you have the 40% we've been talking about. We have people who don't vote, and it's because they have no faith in not even the opposition. First wait, that if they saw that at least the opposition is organized and thinks we all have one goal. We are not fighting each other. We just have a goal of
an organized
peaceful
group.
transition of power. Then you have people who say, but now, have you heard many people saying BSJ is the same as Museveni? Have you heard them?
Let me throw this out to you guys out there. I've been waiting among the groups that have emerged from TDA or Amama Mbabazi's candidature through to Bobby Wine. Who are those fence sitters that have fallen on either side since they emerged? Number two, if anybody knows Ugandan psyche, that so-called 40% actually doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist in real terms.
Really?
Yes. It exists.
But the statistics
Just
show
a moment.
how many voters we have, how many turn up to
vote.
vote.
The statistics show that Ugandans are registered. Whether they are invested in the political process and are having sleepless nights thinking about who is the best person to deliver us, I do not know if they actually exist.
That's actually not true, Charles.
If we even use our census, in 2011 we were around 30 million. Yeah, we had 15%, 15 million on the register. But then we know that half of Uganda's population is below 15. They are not even near 18. Half of Uganda's population is below 15. But then we had half of the population registered to vote. So, if you consider those numbers, it's true there are very many ghosts.
No, let me explain what I was talking about. No election anywhere in the world that attempts to be democratic, free and fair, turns out 100% of the voters.
Yeah, certainly.
Now,
but you see,
have an average anywhere in the world of about 60% turning out to vote, which is phenomenal, which is exceptional. Yes. That you have 60% of citizens registered to vote, turning out and voting. Now, that imaginary 40% of fence sitters are people who, given the best circumstances, provided the best candidate, will still not turn up to vote.
Really?
That's not
that's
true.
What they sleep.
That's not true,
Charles.
No.
Look, even according to the, when you look at the research is done by Research World International, there's many people who keep saying, look, it would be a good thing for the opposition to unite, because then they feel, all right, this provides a card for us to be able to oust President Museveni. So there's many people that actually steer clear of the election. Why?
They are analysts keep feeding them that info.
Yeah, call it perception or otherwise, but just do a random, go to the street and ask. So there's something people see about, okay, these guys are united. And that's why IPC in 2011 broke the hearts of many people. TDA in 2016 broke the hearts of many people who thought, okay, finally this thing is going to happen, these guys will unite. It did not happen, and the people who thought,
yes, Kenneth.
Let's move on to other things.
Is it important for the opposition to unite? I wouldn't say no, because the political actors themselves in the opposition do recognize that fact, that it's very important for them to unite. Why? They rationalize resources, they rationalize maybe decisions, if it's like Dictator was saying, if it's a parliamentary seat and they're about 4 and they decide that one should run for it, and they organize very well, they have time to organize. at least I know at that level they will be able to at least run an issue-based campaign where they will focus in an organized manner if they agree that they are going to front one candidate. And it also brings that level of confidence. If you have it, because right now, for instance,
would you
for instance, right now, let me give you an example. Let me give you an example.
Would you answer the issue that Dicta was raising? At what stage do you create a united front?
Let me give you. I'm going to answer your question. Let me give you an example. One of the narrative that has been trending on social media and elsewhere, people have been saying, okay, Bobi Wine has this support, but who else is behind him? Now imagine a situation where they agree maybe Bobi Wine is a presidential candidate, and you know Dr. Kizza Besigye is going to ally with him, you know Montu is going to ally with him. People will be able to see a team and they will be able to say, look, if this guy wins, there are people around him that are actually going to form a government. So that would be a plus. The same applies to Dr. Kizza Besigye, the same would apply to Norbert Mao. You will see people around that particular person and you agree that indeed there is an alternative. But if you have an opposition that is disunited,
answer the issue, the question I put to you from
I'm going to answer it. If you have an opposition that is disunited, and I'm going to try to answer that very question right now, in the Ugandan context, you'll actually have a problem. I know Dicta's argument, and maybe what you're trying to suggest is that a unity should occur after an election, after you have won.
Really?
That's I think the notion.
No, that's not it.
Please do put the argument forward.
The argument is, or maybe Dicta, you want to put it?
Yeah, so the issue for me is unity should be at the level of MP, councillors, whatever, because that's where you need people working together. At national
and you don't need
level,
them at
at national level, you have an opportunity to work on unity once you know who is the strongest candidate of the ones you're putting forward. Because you see these meetings, for example, at the time when we were talking about Amama Mbabazi, they were pushing Amama Mbabazi as the best candidate and able to bring new people on board. We know that he failed and he was not going to bring these new people on board. But if these people have gone to the election and been voted and we've seen their results, we can then redo, because it's not very likely that in any race, Museveni will lose like completely. He'll just fail to get the 50+1%. So once that has happened, then you can come together behind the second best candidate.
Okay,
but there's been many candidates in the elections before.
Let me just build on what you said, because I think in a way
I disagree with Dicta.
I disagree with Dicta. That's fine. That's fine.
Please, because I'm supposed to respond to her.
If anybody is doing actual political analysis and not elite discussions, you would be able to weigh the candidatures of some of the people who have emerged and on whom alliances, attempts have been made to create alliances. And let's move away from the presidential level. Dicta is telling you about these other levels. In the last election, 2016, FDC did not grow their numbers in parliament. Neither did UPC or the Democratic Party.
They reduced.
They actually reduced. Jema lost by one person.
Yeah.
No.
You know,
Late again.
you know.
Yeah, it
They
did.
always had one person,
they always had
still
one
have
person.
one
No, they had
person.
lost that one person. They
Yeah.
regained that person
Yeah,
in a by-election.
Conservative Party of
Conservative
Kenya
Party,
is the same.
yes, the same. Conservative Party is not in parliament from the time when Luchams left and then the daughter came in. They lost out completely. I don't see as much focus in the talks about
But
an
when
alliance.
the talks fall at the top,
Yes,
when they
just a
fail at
moment.
the top, you
Just a
cannot.
moment. I don't see a concentration of discussion that says these are lower hanging fruits. We can position people that can actually change the dynamic in parliament and then see how the presidential aspirants tussle this out.
When do you then get to see the presidential aspirants?
Assume
Well, you're postponing it to when?
Assume Amama Mbabazi had been able to come with whatever was promised that he would come with from the movement.
Money.
People,
Money they said was from
knowledge,
China.
knowledge about the register and the mobilization capacity. I mean, his mobilization capacity,
rigging
having
tactics.
tactics and everything. If he'd brought it and ran his own race without being disrupted by TDA,
Hey, he was disrupted.
I think he was. Some people will tell you he was disrupted by TDA, and he runs his race. He puts in 10%. You needed 10% from DP, 5% from UPC, another 20% or
and the
15% from
37
someone else,
the-
and then
no, even 5% and the 37
yes,
was-
and that's the argument that I was talking about. Say they neglect us, the smaller players, but the smaller players need to bring their numbers on board, and then after that, if Bobby Wine were to run as Bobby Wine, he mobilizes whoever he can. Whoever doesn't agree with Besigye in the opposition goes for
yeah.
Bobby Wine. Whoever doesn't agree with Bobby Wine and thinks Besigye is still their best candidate goes for Besigye.
Mugisha
However,
Muntu, the
Mugisha
same.
Muntu brings the fence sitters and everyone else who doesn't want confrontation.
Yeah, here's the thing,
And then
Charles.
once
You
you're
are
done-
making an assumption
Yes.
that when all these ones run, then it will be difficult for President Museveni to get the 50% plus
Yes.
one. You know, it's
No,
possible,
because
but then
it's
again,
because
it's an
people are
assumption.
popular.
Just a second. It's an assumption. The same way, and we have had that, for heaven's sake. Every election, we have a plethora of candidates running. The previous one, there were what, 8 or 9? And Ugandans are saying, guys, let's try out the bit of one. You know? So the assumption that if there are many, then they can deny him the 50% plus one. Okay, but it's an assumption. Just like there is an assumption of, look, maybe if these guys are all united, it might be different because we have tried out the other of having several candidates.
From experience,
and what has it delivered
from
to us?
experience, if anybody has followed President Museveni, he is incapable, and it's the NRM, they are incapable of fighting at multiple fronts.
Yes.
But that's what happened in 2016. How did it turn up?
No,
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 because,
no.
That's what happened in
because
2011.
you see,
The moment they realized that the tide was moving, actually, 2016, the focus on Omama Mbabazi, in a way helped Besigye
yes,
build his numbers.
Yes.
Because the attention was not on Besigye. In going into 2021,
That's why
So now
Kenneth
you agree
was
with what I
telling
told
you
you?
that Amamba was probably
Would have been the biggest target in that
Probably.
election.
let
You
me-
now agree?
no. For a while, for a while.
because you guys said you
No,
were
no, no,
vindicated
no.
by him getting 1%.
No, I have, even before his candidature, I believe he's watching this show, and Besigye is watching this show. I had my doubts on how much Mbabazi could achieve electorally on his own. And I am not surprised he scored the way he scored, in spite of the rigging. He brought in phones which were supposed to deliver his messages and also deliver money to his network, and they were confiscated and
They
taken
didn't
away
get to
by
their
the NSA.
destination.
They were not delivered to their destination. But that he didn't
Yes,
anticipate,
why?
that he didn't anticipate that would have happened, and planned to deliver them in a different way. There is a vehicle that was that was delivering phones to Karamoja, and it was stopped somewhere in Kitgum. First, delays, confusion, and then finally, it was actually confiscated. If, with his experience and what he was bringing to the opposition at that time,
Supposedly bringing.
he didn't know how the person he had worked with very closely and the system he had built over the years function. For me, that was a minus for him.
How about each of those brings their
No, no,
expertise
okay,
and
okay,
prowess or
guys,
whatever the
okay.
case might be? If we say Charles Mwangu here, of the 5 of us, is the best
How-
placed.
how
You know,
about
he
those-
brings
how
his
about-
expertise,
how
she
about
brings
those-
hers,
how about those
I bring
who-
mine,
how about
and then
those-
we prepare this
Exactly.
one.
How about
Exactly.
those who
You
went
pe-
into
you know-
the process? How about those who went into the process knowing that they would be rigged and they kept talking about it, and after that they complained about the results? They are all the same. If that's the argument
yeah,
you're bringing.
So you can say they are all the same. But here's the thing, that right now, the constitution was amended to remove the age limit because there were no MPs, and no one ever focuses on that area. And always you lose, because if
Let's take a quick commercial break. When we
Now
come
this is a
back,
But
different
Charles,
debate.
you're- Charles,
You
you're
have a
not
focus
allowed
on
to
both.
come
Why
respond to
not?
dictate.
Focus
When
on
we come
parliament, focus on the presidency too. Because parliament is important.
I
You don't
can-
have a president who
And
doesn't
I-
have numbers.
I
And
have-
be impeached on day 2.
I have
can
been
tell
telling
you
them that there's
the
no way talks
opposition
can collapse
generally
at the presidential
has
level,
not
and
focused on these other
Yes.
levels of
Yeah, and that
election.
should
They
change. I
can't
agree.
because
I agree.
because
I
they
agree.
have not addressed
Because you
the
need
topmost
parliament.
aspect.
Exactly.
You know, if
Oh.
Dr. Besigye had been announced president in
Debasoga
2016,
say,
Okay, now this has become a shouting match.
Omwami Kyakoba. Debasoga say Omwami Kyakoba.
Nze nange
Literally
kyange.
meaning what the topmost person says is what I
talks
will
can't
follow.
collapse at top.
And that-
And you
Gentlemen,
that's
expect
what
them
we
let's
to
take a
dictate
act.
commercial
what
break. When we
happens.
come back, we'll be talking about our money in the National Social Security Fund under a new proposed bill. We'll be right back. A new proposed law, rather. hot on and off the air, the discussion about our politics.
That's what Obote said about Museveni back then.
What
I'm
did
sure
you
the viewers heard what she was saying.
Daddy?
No, you know Museveni, because she was saying, you know, Bobi Wine didn't have much experience. You see, Obote said Museveni and his fellow rebels were a group of bandits.
How much?
And
And,
Hunter.
and I actually think it was
Bandits.
right, because they were
He
bandits.
called them bandits.
You
not
know,
bandits.
because they went to
Ah.
Kabamba, stole guns, they were raiding people's gardens and all these different things. You know, they were killing people. So, but anyhow, here we are.
No, but at least they knew. Museveni had no doubt about his performance in 1980 elections. He never had
Because he
illusions.
was beaten
never-
by some
No,
person.
he never had illusions that he was going to win that election. But he knew what he wanted that election for.
That's why in
And
the
it served his
election he
purpose.
said, look, if
And-
they
and it
rig
served
us,
his
we shall
purpose.
go to the
That's
bush.
why.
which
That's
is
why
the-
I
He had
asked
made
you a
up his mind.
question.
Which is the
What do you
thing.
make of people who go into the election, actually already discrediting the process, saying it will not be free and fair, and then they present themselves as a candidate?
Yes,
Yeah.
because they know what message they are sending. Because political messages are not sent to one group. Their messages, you listen to all these seasoned political actors. Yoweri Museveni, Kizza Besigye, even Jepam, and Bobby Wine is graduating into that. Of course, with the benefit, with the fact that the disclaimer that he's been on the political stage for a shorter period of time. You send messages to different actors. If you send a message and say, we know this process will be rigged, you're telling the Electoral Commission, we have no faith in you, so up your game. You're telling the incumbent that, man, we are sending this message to maybe the international community. So I think that is tactical.
But you're also telling a common voter who actually believes in you that there is no
That
need to
don't
go
go
in
and
that
vote.
process.
Maybe
So it's a
not.
double-edged sword.
Maybe not, yes. Gentlemen and ladies,
I'm done with
majority of Ugandans that I know, formally employed like you guys are, hang on to and check. NSSF has been doing these updates on how much has been thrown into your account after every month. I think about 15th, when when the employer has put in the money, they send you an update and say 27,000 shillings has been credited to your NSSF account. Now your total is 347,000 shillings, and you think, okay, I have some savings in NSS. Now, there is a proposed amendment to the National Social Security Fund Act, which is the National Social Security Fund Amendment Bill 2019. It sparked a lot of controversy. Some people argue that the initial reporting and the initial debate on this bill was done without reading the proposals themselves, and therefore certain areas were misrepresented. I don't know how accurate that is. But I'll read the long title to the bill, and it says the National Social Security Fund Amendment Bill 2019. This is a memorandum. The policy behind the bill is to expand social security coverage by making contribution to the National Social Security Fund mandatory for all workers in the formal sector, and also allowing workers in the formal and informal sectors to make voluntary contributions to the National Social Security Fund. So Agatha, who is an independent journalist, can decide to contribute. That is what the bill is suggesting. And if you worked for an online newspaper that only employs 3 people, you'd still be eligible, which is unlike the current law, which says you need 5 employees and above to become eligible.
But
to
also
contribute.
you who is formally employed,
Yes.
you can tell your employer that you want to contribute more than
Yes.
5%
Voluntarily, yeah.
In addition,
to
the bill
fund.
seeks to enhance the spectrum of benefits available to workers and to improve management of the National Social Security Fund. These are the defects they say in the existing law. The law was enacted in 1985 and does not adequately address emerging challenges in the management of Social Security in Uganda. The proposal to amend the NSSF Act particularly arises from the need to streamline the management of the fund, to expand the scope of Social Security coverage and benefits. The Act, in its current state, does not make express provision for the representation of workers, employers, and other stakeholders on the board of directors. The appointment of the managing director and the deputy managing director by the minister without the role of the board undermines the ability of the board to supervise them. Further, although it is in the best interest of all employees to save for retirement, the Act currently gives the minister discretion to determine the category of employees who are eligible to contribute. That's what we were discussing before. Expenditure by the fund is subject to approval of the annual budget by the minister. Gives a little way too much power. And you need to remember that NSSF was moved from the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development to the
Finance.
Minister of Finance. There are talks now about taking it back to gender.
That's why the bill was presented by one of the ministers within the Ministry of Gender.
Back to
Yes,
the
Natural
Mother
like
Ministry.
It's supposed to go
youth
back
minister.
to and they propose remedies
But the
to
bill,
those
she, the
proposals.
bill she
But the bill
presented is
still-
the one that
But does
emphasizes
the bill-
Minister
But
of
the
Finance.
bill still talks about Minister of Finance.
Yes.
in
Yeah.
there.
But does it matter where because you see we have since formed and that's the weird thing about Uganda. We have since formed UBRA, which is supposed to look after NSSF and other
pension schemes.
yeah, other pension schemes. So what's all this ping pong about the minister and so on? and
It
so
actually matters. I'll tell you why. Of course, that's on the assumption, that these ministries operate as they should. They don't. You and I know. Now, so previously, government has been borrowing from NSSF through treasury bills, bonds, that NSSF would buy, and that's the
No,
way
they
government
still
would
do.
borrow.
They still do.
And currently, the proposal here is that government will now be able to directly borrow from NSSF. Now, who supervises NSSF?
Yeah,
It is
but-
the minister. Just hold on.
Yeah.
The Ministry of Finance supervises NSSF. The Ministry of Finance is also the one that
Borrows.
initiates borrowing on behalf of government. So I'm your supervisor. So when I come and say, now I want this
Joel.
amount of money, are you going to say no? There's a bit of a problem.
Joel, let me ask you.
Please.
So you think the Ministry of Gender will refuse?
That's what I was saying,
money?
on the assumption
Yeah.
that, on the assumption, you remember the assumption? The assumption was that these ministries operate
And
like
he
they
started
should,
with that.
and they don't.
And he makes a lot of
Gentlemen and
sense.
ladies.
There is already contradiction here. You have a bill presented by Janet Mkwaya, Minister of Labour. But the bill emphasizes we want to substitute this one with Minister of Finance, Minister in charge of Finance.
You guys, I thought
Why don't
that's
you-
why they formed UBRA as a regulator of the pension sector. And by the way, that's the other weird thing, that the government introduced a bill for liberalization of pensions, and then they shelved it, and now they've brought this.
Yeah,
So
they-
which has
they-
never
well,
been
the
passed.
same way they created
Hey,
an anti-corruption unit in State House, there's IGG
Uh-huh.
whom you have disempowered. System Volongoto.
Anyway,
Charles.
Charles, ask your question.
I'm trying to listen. The controversy, the most controversy, the issues around NSSF. You see, we're moving towards, there have been changes to the pension sector to allow other players. There was talk about breaking up NSSF and allowing it to compete with others. What has happened in the period, in my view, is that, from what I know, is that you have created a regulator that appears so powerful, but actually not regulating one entity, which is largely still NSSF, because the others haven't come up. The one they tried to create for the ordinary Chikubo trader, I don't think it's making as much headway as it thought it would be making. It's kind of stuck.
Which Ugandan will trust this
It's,
government with
yeah,
become
it's kind of still stuck. Now you propose these amendments, but the controversy, gentlemen and ladies, has been around the taxation of contributions. I have significant difficulty relating with the wording of benefits, because I don't think they're benefits where the worker contributes and the employer contributes, especially where employers pay miserable salaries. So if they put 10% to NSSF, they're actually not giving you a benefit. They should have been paying you better in the first place before they send that
And
money
actually,
to the
so
other
they'll
side.
calculate, instead of paying you
Yes.
this because we have to make the other contribution, so they slice.
Let's first clarify on the issues. There's been debate about what money will be taxed, at what stage the money will be taxed. The current arrangement is that the salary is taxed before the NSSF contribution is deducted. That is for the
Yes,
employee. Yes, the employee, the 5% that you send. The contribution of the employer is not taxed at the moment. When they file their returns, they can discount that contribution to the employee, from what I have been told. That the taxation would come. Now they want to net off the NSSF contribution and then tax what remains. I mean, from the gross, tax what remains. So where is this confusion in the reporting coming from? Let me start with people who are active in the journalism field. Kenneth Lukwago, you've spent years reporting at Parliament.
Let me tell you where the confusion is coming out. The confusion is coming from what Dictor here whispered. The lack of trust in what generally the government tries to do. There are people there who actually think the stage at which the government is, they will do anything possible to pull as much money as possible to a place where they think they can access it. Hence, the mandatory aspect of it. That's what most people are looking at. They actually think as many more Ugandans get to save with NSSF, and then there is a plan that the government can now directly go and borrow, and then there is an attempt to move it to another ministry from the ministry that will primarily initiate borrowing. Now, there is a class of people who actually think that's where the problem is. But overall, I wouldn't want so much to dwell in the legal issues that are around there. My interest would be in actually understanding whether the fund is actually positioned well to actually benefit the people who are actually putting their money there. You were talking about something called the benefits, and you brought it out. And I have been talking to some people in the trade unions who actually have some good ideas as far as how far the benefits should go, given the needs of different individuals. For instance, there are people who have been saving with NSSF and they have accumulated some good money. Like it could be maybe 100 million, 70 million or something like that. And their urgent need right now is accommodation. They are struggling to get money to be able to put up a house. And the trade unions have actually been suggesting, why doesn't NSSF include such an aspect in the benefits that would accrue to a saver, somebody who is saving with that fund? That instead of you thinking about the person collecting the money when they retire, do something for them now depending on their immediate need. For instance, they have suggested NSSF has bought land, can set up houses and things like that. If that is the case, why don't you build maybe houses and provide people an option? If I want a house, and you can calculate and say, this house is going to cost you 50 million. Give me that house.
About how many savers of NSSF would actually qualify for schemes like that?
Yeah. How many savers?
Yes.
We wouldn't know because that option is not in place. Okay. But I'm sure if that option was created, there are people who would come forward and say, I need a house. You some facts. I need to do business. This is what I need.
95%. 93, I think. 93% of NSSF contributors at their retirement, when they go to claim their benefits, take, on average, 13 million shillings.
So, it all goes back to the profitability of the fund.
No.
Yes.
Their savings.
And the benefits that come with it.
It doesn't go to the profitability. It means that the contributors are putting in so little money that their salaries are so low. Number two.
The reason people are contributing is actually for you to take this money and do with it, do something with it, and then you are able to give them benefits.
Let me just lay down some of these facts. Number two, most beneficiaries of NSSF money have spent it within 2 years. If they are lucky. The money is exhausted.
But it's little, so.
Yeah, it's little, so it's exhausted within a period of 2 years. Number three, that the majority of the people who want their money, to claim their money early, are struggling with the things you're talking about. Payment of school fees, yes, building a house, meeting medical expenses. It raises for me the bigger question. Should we be debating this small contribution to NSSF or debating about broader social welfare issues in this country? Let me come to
I thought I was still on the floor.
Okay.
Because you brought the question direct to me. You were trying to sort of disapprove what I was saying. You've brought out actually the right picture. But what I'm saying, that money belongs to me as somebody who has been saving in the fund. Just because there are rules that say this and this should happen, I should have a say on how that money is actually getting to me. If my need at that particular time as somebody who worked is to cater for school fees, and I have proved that indeed I have 7 children, I am stuck, I can't pay their university tuition, and going by the standard of Uganda that education is sort of an investment, people educate their children knowing that once they're educated, they get jobs, they become better, they will be able to take care of me in old age. Why don't you look at my proposal and actually verify whether it's right or not?
Yes.
And you allow me to access that
money. They'll put to you, Anderson. They'll say, so you pay the school fees for 3rd term. What happens for first term next year?
Let's get this
thing.
That the normal if this was a functioning government, the role of government is to make sure that its people are taken care of even when they don't think they need that taken care of. The point to the world over, everyone has these kinds of funds to take care of pensioners. The reason they have them is that you don't know, because what you're arguing here is that your kids will take care of you, but actually what happens is that, and that's why we have that 20,000 shillings they give to old people, is that most people who are old are also dying of poverty. The other day I was reading a story somewhere in Lira where someone is on the streets, an 80-year-old woman is on the streets begging because they have no funds to take care of them. If the government, as they say, is trying to take care of all of its old people, then you can't make that argument. But I think on the bill, I think
Do you think it's a good law?
I think we are focusing on the wrong things. The one on the tax is, I mean, if you've waited for your money for 25 years, surely you can wait for 5 years and therefore take that money without tax.
At 60?
At 60. But the government borrowing from that fund could be dangerous. When they were expanding Owen Falls Dam to do Chira Dam, they borrowed money, the government borrowed money from the equalization fund for coffee. And that money was never repaid. So this, right now, NSSF is lending to government, but through treasury bills and bonds. But now you're saying, let's remove that going through Bank of Uganda and make it a piggy bank of sorts. Previously, when it has been a piggy bank, we've seen the whole coffee cooperative and whatever closed because of money problems. Now you're saying, let's do the same for NSSF. How sure are we that this time around the government will honor its promises? For me, I think that would be the issue. And you have to remember that borrowing has been growing, and China is not as excited as they used to be to lend to African countries, because they have sort of been banned. They've had to forgive debt, I think, in Ethiopia, or extend its length or something. So these are the things you have to think about. There used to be a thing that this government used to do. They would come up with a law with two different controversial things.
Omnibus.
Yeah,
they give you something and then
they take something. I think the tax was the thing they were willing to give up so that they can borrow, and somehow we've sort of been distracted to look at the tax instead of looking at what actually the problem you should be fighting for, and that's government borrowing from the NSSF directly.
Charles, for once I'm agreeing with Victor. It's interesting that this is being introduced right about now as we are headed to elections. In 2011, President Museveni raided Bank of Uganda and got over $700 million, over 2 trillion Uganda shillings. And shortly after that election, as there was inflation all over the place, Tumsime Mtebile, professor, did say, look, I was misled into funding an election. The man was very brutally honest, like our good friends the Bachiga usually are. So that's what happened. And now they're finding other tactics of how this can happen. And this is it. Because if government can, at any time they want, go to NSSF and borrow, and there's no clear modus operandi, how does this get to happen? Because previously, like we are saying, it's been treasury bills, which is initiated pretty much by NSSF. So NSSF currently has a portfolio of about what, 10 trillion shillings? Government wants to get its dirty, filthy hands on it. And I say dirty, filthy hands because we have seen the track record.
You were interested, you hadn't made a comment.
Yes, I thought we were talking about whether it's a good deal or a terrible deal.
Yes.
And I thought it's better to take through the viewers the controversial provisions. And the one provision that everyone is talking about is Section 38 of the current bill. And Section 38 in its current form says, any benefits paid shall be exempt from income tax. That's what the bill, the law is now. That all the benefits of the savers are exempt from tax, from income tax, so they are not taxed. Now the new bill, which is making everyone uneasy, says contributions will not be taxed, investments will not be taxed, but withdrawal of those benefits will be taxed if you withdraw it
Before 60 years.
60. And the issue, the reason everyone thought, it takes us back to our reporting as journalists. The headline of the new vision of Wednesday says government to tax NSSF members' benefits. And I know many people on the many WhatsApp platforms it was shared, many people who never read and just saw
Who read the headline?
Yeah, it's alarming. Like, how can we pay tax on our salary and then pay tax on the money we save off that salary? That's double taxation, and everyone was alarmed. You can blame them for not reading the entire story, but you cannot exonerate a newspaper that does that. I am not saying a headline should cover everything, but it was a misleading headline. And that, coupled with the loss of trust, the mistrust we talked about on the show last week in government, we are not used to government doing things in our interests. We are not, like, to say they have wrote a new bill to benefit us, the savers, the members of NSSF. We are used to them milking more and more. Every tax regime we are complaining, they have taxed us more, they have brought OTT, they have brought mobile money tax. So that made everyone think, what? This government is really pushing us to the wall. But I think the problem with the tax is not as bad as we thought. Like you guys already know now, is you are only taxed if you are withdrawing it before 60. While Kenneth Lukwago Anderson thinks that's a problem because people might need their money before 60, the whole essence of social security is that after you retire, how are you going to survive? So like Charles was saying before we went on air, use the 95% remaining of your salary to save for those other things you have to do. But all in all, I think the law, apart from the borrowing bit, which still wouldn't have a problem if we trusted, if we had confidence in our government.
No. Agatha, you see.
Charles raised something which was very important. Whether we were discussing the right thing or whether we needed to discuss the broader picture of how the economy is actually treating people. Like Agatha here says that I should use the other remainder of my salary to save. And I would ask you a question. What if the salary that that particular person is earning does not even allow them to save?
And that's the problem, I think, Anderson, that any amount of money can be saved. The problem with savings and saving culture in this country is NSSF has found, they gathered people, contributors above the age of 45 into the conference center here, and I attended once. I'm not above 45, but
there's no problem with that.
I attended I walked in with a friend and was able to attend. We are not saving, especially people formally employed are not saving. Now forget about the people who are informally employed and don't save, and fate takes care as and when their abilities to work for themselves gets compromised. But the people who are running to NSSF seeking to withdraw this money, there's a provision under 24A of this proposed, this new bill, where you can access your benefits mid-term if you are a voluntary contributor. Because some of us are statutory contributors because the law demands that we contribute. If you're a voluntary contributor, you can access that money mid-term. But there are other ways to access it through invalidity benefits. You can access it from on health grounds. You
loss
can
of employment.
Incapacitated.
Not loss of employment.
No.
Loss of employment?
No,
loss of employment doesn't qualify you.
Shouldn't it qualify?
No.
Somebody has lost employment and their option is to start a business.
Yes, the problem
These are
is
things that we should look into.
No, guys, look here.
And I'm thinking this bill being in Parliament, it can be improved upon.
Yes.
Somebody has lost a job.
Okay.
Yes,
and their option is to access their benefits and start a business.
Indulge me
That's something
to read,
that should be looked at.
To read the controversial section 38 that Agatha was talking about. Notwithstanding the provisions of any other law, all member contributions not exceeding 30% of income of the member shall be exempt from tax. I need someone who understands this. Dicta, you are best placed to explain to me what exceeding 30% means. All employer contributions to the fund shall be exempt from tax.
Read that again.
This is 38 subsection 1. Notwithstanding the provisions of any other law, all member contributions not exceeding 30% of income of the member shall be exempt from tax. I don't understand exactly what that means.
I don't either.
Subsection 2, all employer contributions to the fund shall be exempt from tax. Number 3, subsection 3, the investment income of the fund.
I get it.
Yes.
So, you know, pay as you earn, you pay, there are those categories.
Yes, 30% and 40%.
Yes. So it's using the same scale of the way they calculate pay as you earn.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
They use the same scale.
The investment income of the fund shall be exempt from income tax.
I
The current position is
Yes,
that
yeah.
URA takes 30% of profits the fund makes
yeah.
as
When it
income tax
invests and so on.
when it
Yes,
invests.
yes.
Now that is being exempted, and the thinking is when that is added to your savings in
And
form of interest,
You
it
get
gives
more
you more money.
Yeah.
For example, last year NSSF gave 14% as interest. Was that 13 or 14%? 13%. If there was no tax on that money, they would have given members 17%. Does that make sense?
Yes. Now,
does.
I wanted to go to what Kenneth was talking about.
Can I finish this
Okay.
controversial section? Member benefits shall be taxed at the point of payment to the member, except in the case of death or invalidity, and taxation shall be at the prevailing rate at the time of payment of the benefit. Subsection 4, this is subsection 5. Subsection 4 shall not apply to benefits arising out of contributions made to the fund before the coming into force of this act. What you're talking about, this was picked
going
out.
forward.
Going forward.
Going
So
forward.
if you have 30 million in savings in NSSF, that is safe, is secured from this taxation.
Yeah.
What you contribute afterwards will
is
be
what?
subjected to. Notwithstanding, this is subsection 6, notwithstanding any provision of this act or any other law, a member over the age of 60 years shall not pay tax on any benefit under this act. There will be an insertion of section 38A in the Principal Act. The Principal Act is amended by inserting immediately after section 38 the following section. Payment of annual levy by the fund. The fund shall pay an annual levy to the Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority. I have no idea what this organization does, this authority does.
Yeah, that's
Notwithstanding any other
UBRA. That's
yes,
UBRA. That's what.
They have the
annual
capacity
levy
and power to.
referred to under subsection 1 shall not exceed 0.05 of the total assets.
And Charles, that's the thing that for me gets me, that we have UBRA, but we shall also have a commissioner somewhere in the Ministry of Gender
Yes.
doing exactly the same thing. And the other thing is that one of the things that people have been pushing for is liberalize this
Liberalization
sector,
of the sector.
allow people, the candidates who want to take
Competition.
their money and
put it
put it
elsewhere.
elsewhere to do it, or even build houses and do that.
Exactly.
But because it's very wrong that we are in a situation where we are spending money on UBRA and
Which was
Okay.
put
to
in
regulate
Gentlemen and ladies.
NSSF, and then
We need more
But is
time
that
to discuss.
surprising?
We need more time to discuss this. We need to get out of here. So I'll take a last word from each one of you. Kenneth, I think we need to have a deeper discussion on this whole savings thing, because people are living longer, they blow their money. You get 13 million shillings, you can't attempt to build a house with it, because it will not get out of the foundation.
Well, not
And
everybody is
then
getting
you don't
14
have
million shillings.
Yes, you don't have the savings, they're exhausted. You don't have the house. What happens to you after that? Your last word.
Well, me, what I would say actually, I think Dicta here brought out something very important when she talks about the Retirement Benefits Authority. I think the original discussion, even before this NSSF amendment bill came into place, was liberalizing the pension sector so that there would be options. People would have options to save with A, to save with B, to save with C, depending on what they are offering them. But now we have a situation where the government actually still maintains that it should only be NSSF. And therefore, my argument would be, let's have improvements that will actually allow people to enjoy their savings the way they should. If people have needs, however peculiar they are, they should be taken on board.
Thank you. Dicta?
for me, the issue here is that I still think the focus should be on this law allowing government to borrow, but secondly also to push for liberalization of the sector, because if now government is going to borrow from NSSF, a Ugandan should be allowed to decide whether they want their savings going to the government or going to an insurance company that can invest it wherever they want. I think for me that's the issue that people should focus on. The tax, that's it's not really a big deal. The big deal is what will happen to people's money. Can we trust that this money will be paid back? In a government which has so many areas they've failed to pay back contractors, the people who give them services, but now you're saying get NSSF money directly, give it to the government, you don't know whether you'll pay it or not, and that affects people's saving. I think that's where the focus should be, not so much on the tax.
Agatha.
Well, I also would like to allay people's fears, savers' fears, that the tax, there's nothing big or going wrong about the tax. That right now you're going to be only taxed if you access your money before 60. Since we understand,
and if you haven't died.
Since we understand
death is,
social
and invalidity is
so
exempted.
since we understand social security to be that's the whole essence, you're saving for old age, everyone should wait until that time. The issue on borrowing that Dicta brings out, it's problematic, and it's a problematic country where we prefer to go and choke on debts from China, where the interests are very high, when we have money lying idle.
That's
of
not
NSSF.
true.
No, because
even now NSSF lends to government through treasury bills.
not like I was saying, ordinarily government borrowing from NSSF to do work, since we are waiting to get our money in the future, shouldn't be a problem ordinarily. But right now, where we don't trust that the government will borrow it and refund it, that it will not be a raiding that Joel talks about, that's where the problem is.
Okay.
And it goes back to
Joel.
loss of trust.
Charles, it's important to save because the time comes, a rainy day, and you need that money that you should have saved. The challenge is, like we all seem to be saying, there's mistrust. There's mistrust for government. The taxation issue is not a very big deal, really. But even that, the alarms were embedded in the mistrust, yeah? So now that we are saying government can literally, at any time they want, go and access this money, it's problematic. There is no trust. We have seen the government raid Bank of Uganda before, that they did very clandestinely, and now we are saying, you know, you have got a clean blank check to do that. It's very problematic.
Raid.
Where it's raiding. That's really what happened. You know, so where we don't trust government, is this our money safe? Could it have been used better? Because now, NSF might want, for example, to invest this our money in something that we feel this is profitable, we should go this direction. But the law is mandating government to borrow as and when they want, and there are even no limits on how much they can. So that's the problem, really.
Thank you. I think we need to have a broader discussion on the whole saving thing.
NSSF.
I think NSSF is the least money people need to pay. The problem is, because of NSSF, that it is mandatory saving for formal employed people, is that we formal employed people tend to peg all our hopes in that money. You'd find us discussing and saying, okay, now I have 30 million shillings in NSSF. What can I do with 30 million shillings? But when you step back and ask, what can I actually do with 30 million shillings? How far can it take me? And then how much longer do I have ahead of me? And what does that mean when this money is exhausted? Especially Anderson, who was talking about borrowing to pay school fees, borrowing to pay medical bills, accessing benefits.
To invest.
Yes, accessing that money.
Because I believe
NSSF will tell you,
social security has evolved.
NSSF will tell you, when you attempt to try to do business at 50, at 45, at 55, at 60, you have no idea what the hustle downtown in Chikubo actually takes. And then you burn the money through and you have nothing to fall back to.
I will not be the one
gentlemen
running the
and
business.
ladies, we need to get out of here. Just use the platform. This is the only opportunity I have. Our king has been touring his kingdom. And yes, we have a number of crowds.
I hope each of you will tell us about your cultural leaders.
I know you're going to laugh about it.
But this our host.
We need to get out of here. Thank you very much.
The man has a
Kenneth
position
Anderson
to defend
Lukwago,
that.
thank you very much. Dicta Asimu from the East African. Kenneth is from Radio 1. Thank you very much. Agatha Ateide, who is an independent journalist. Thank you very much. Joel Senyonyi of People Power. Thank you very much to you all our viewers for joining us tonight and always, and the production crew that stay up late to deliver the show to you. From me, it's a good night.